If you missed watching the previous part of this story, watch it to catch up on its details. In the first part, we saw our hero, 3-year-old Aries, who was born again in the kingdom of Saint Force. Aries is distinguished by his evaluation skill, which enables him to know the strength of those facing him. One day, Aries met a young man named Ritsu, and he took him to the palace to work as a servant. However, everyone rejected Ritsu and made fun of his appearance. Aries did not give up, so he convinced the Lord to duel Ritsu to test his strength. The Lord agreed on the condition that he appoint Ritsu if he was victorious. A fierce battle took place between Ritsu and the Lord, which almost ended in Ritsu's defeat had he not been given one last chance in a new challenge. Follow with us the events of this interesting story in this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell button, and support the video by achieving 1 like. The Lord raised his sword at Ritsu, who also grabbed his sword. Raven said to him, "If you can inflict 1 blow on me within 3 minutes, I will announce that you have joined me. It does not matter how many blows you receive. You will not be defeated unless you surrender or the 3 minutes pass." Aries watched the confrontation with reassured enthusiasm. He thought to himself, "Since it is limited to 1 strike, Ritsu will inevitably win." Raven tried to calm the atmosphere, so he asked Ritsu his name. "My name is Ritsu Masu," Ritsu replied. Lord replied, "This is the head of House Leuven." The battle began between them, and Raven rained down violent blows that stunned Ritsu. But Ritsu quickly regained control of himself and blocked his opponent's blows. The intensity of the duel between them intensified, and everyone was confused, as no one knew who would win. This situation surprised those present, as it was not expected that Ritsu would show such resistance in the face of Raven's power. Suddenly, when Raven was about to deliver a fatal blow, Ritsu skillfully dodged the blow, which surprised Aries, who expected Ritsu to be defeated from the beginning. The two stopped fighting, and Raven started mocking Ritsu, but Ritsu did not pay attention to his sarcasm, but instead stood tall and said, "The battle is not over yet. I will prove my worth before the Lord." Ritsu's behavior startled Aries, who noticed a strange transformation in his features as a look of evil appeared on his face. Ritsu rushed with all his speed towards the Lord, who was confident in the power of his sword that would enable him to anticipate his opponent's movement. But Ritsu suddenly disappeared in front of him, which surprised everyone. In a fleeting moment, Ritsu appeared from under the Lord, holding his sword. The Lord was not surprised by his sudden appearance and said, "Display your strength as you wish. You will not be able to defeat me." But Ritsu suddenly jumped out of the window, holding his sword with all his might. Ritsu jumped out of the window with all his might, directing a violent blow at the Lord. However, the Lord responded to the attack with steadfastness, which surprises Aries. Aries couldn't believe what he was seeing. Although there was no friendship between them, the duel ignited with ferocity and power. Ritsu was wondering in amazement about the secret of the Lord's strength, which was able to repel his powerful blows. Suddenly, the Lord stopped fighting and said, "It's over." Confusion spread throughout the place, and no one understood the Lord's intention, so neither of them fell to the ground. But Aries realized that Ritsu had managed to scratch the Lord, even if only a small scratch. The Lord declared in front of everyone that Ritsu was a strong fighter, and he was able to best him. Then he announced the appointment of Ritsu as a soldier in his army. Aries is overjoyed as his plan finally succeeds, and his friend Ritsu joins the army. Ritsu thanked his friend Aries, and the Lord admitted to him that he was right in his belief in his skill in combat. The Lord praised Aries and said to him, "I know that you have a unique talent that will benefit the kingdom in the future." He continued his speech by saying, "I told you before that your talent is powerful and important, but if you do not use it well, you may destroy yourself." Aries began to think about his father's words and realized that he was right. His talent would be of no use if he was not a skilled fighter. He thought about Ritsu and knew that he should not trust him too much, as he might be a traitor. He must deal with everyone with caution. The Lord continued his speech saying, "You must redouble your efforts in training during the coming period and prepare yourself for war, as we or others may become emperors of this country." As soon as Aries heard the word emperor, the Lord laughed and said, "Emperor on such a small land? Work hard, my son, for what is hidden is greater." Then he left them and went away. The soldiers gathered around Ritsu, praising his skill in fighting and his strength, and some of them even asked to fight a trial fight with him to get to know his strength firsthand. However, Ritsu apologized to them and said, "I cannot fight again today. I am still shaking from the horror of the confrontation with the Lord." The soldiers understood his position and agreed to postpone the fight to another day. Aris felt great pride. The soldiers loved Ritsu and began to honor him after they had mocked him. After a short while, Ares went to Ritsu's room to check on him, but he was astonished by what he saw. Ritsu was wearing an elegant uniform, and his appearance had completely changed. Ritsu had never expected to one day wear such a luxurious outfit and walk side by side with Ares, but he still felt a little nervous about living with them in the palace. Ares reassured him and told him that he would be his assistant in the palace, in addition to appointing him as a soldier in the army. Ritsu's heart overflowed with gratitude toward Ares, and he bowed to him with respect and thanks, and said, "I owe you everything, sir. If it were not for you, I would still be suffering in the streets. I will be obedient to you as long as I live, and one day I will return your favor." Ares started talking to himself, saying, "I am Ares Loven, the son of the Lord, and I am 3 years old. It is true that I am still a child, but in reality I am a man in his 30s. I died and was born again in this world. I have the talent of evaluation, which enables me to know people's talents and abilities. Thanks to this talent, I was able to discover Ritsu's talent, and he became my friend. I want to gather all those with exceptional talents to form a special team that will help me save my country." Aris decided to teach Ritsu to read and write. He was proud of his friend who had become part of the palace. After a while, Ritsu arrived and asked Aris if there were lessons today, and Aris told him that there would be a lesson. Aris noticed a slight change in Ritsu's personality recently. Ritsu's statistics increased, and he proved his worth in the army. During their school day, the roles were reversed, and Ritsu became the teacher, and he began to tell Aris about the history of the powerful kingdom of Insal, which was able to subjugate many kingdoms under the leadership of its emperor, Inzas Piedras. Ritsu explained that this happened 20 or 30 years ago, and how the statistics of the San Force kingdom had deteriorated greatly during that period due to the corruption of the government that was preoccupied with its own interests and ignored the interests of the people. Aris was aware of this information, but he let Ritsu finish his explanation due to his young age. Ares realized that war was approaching and he must form a strong army to fight the battle and achieve victory. But he thought about the possibility of preventing the war in the first place. Ritsu replied that this was only possible if a wise and powerful emperor took over. Ares Ritsu asked, "Is there someone capable of wresting power from the Piedras family?" Ritsu replied, "The expected heir is an 18-year-old child who lacks any fighting or physical abilities. It is true that he possesses some intelligence, but the real problem is that war will soon break out in their country, as its current king is old and about to leave." Ritsu continued his speech, saying, "Their king is old and he has only 2 sons. It is natural for the eldest of them to assume the throne, but he is a weak person and not qualified to rule. As for the younger one, he is better off, but he still lacks experience and wisdom. A major conflict has broken out between the 2 brothers, and the emperor must name one of them before his death. Otherwise, the country will enter into an endless civil war." Ritsu added, "Even if the emperor appoints one of them, that will not prevent the outbreak of war, as the 2 brothers harbor hostility and hatred towards each other." Ares felt fear for his family and for his father and mother, and he began to think about a question that had been pressing on him for a long time. If Ritsu, a 30-year-old man, moved to this world, what about his family in his original world? Has he completely forgotten about them? Ares did not find a satisfactory answer to his question, and he began to think about the geographical divisions of the world in which he lives. The world is divided into several kingdoms, the most important of which are Canal, Lombard, and Maison. Aris's father rules part of Lombard, but not all of it, making him vulnerable to overthrow at any time. Ares was aware of the possibility of war, but he did not expect it to break out so quickly, especially since his father was still in the prime of his youth. Ares felt upset as he was still a 3-year-old child and could not participate in the war, and so far he had only found Ritsu as a strong and reliable person. He had a feeling of fear at the idea of his father being captured and what the fate of the castle and its inhabitants might become. Ares wondered to himself, "Will I be able to save my father and my people?" Ritsu woke him up from his distraction, reassuring him that if they were able to win the battle and defend their country, nothing bad would happen to them. He stressed the need to strengthen the army and recruit more soldiers. Ritsu said, "Don't worry, sir. I will always be by your side, and I will defend you and your father." Ares was pleased with Ritsu's words, and they agreed to look for strong people with unique talents. While they were leaving, Ares caught the sight of his father training fiercely in preparation for war. As soon as the Lord saw them, he came forward to greet them and asked them about their destination. Ares told him that they would be looking for people with exceptional talents. The Lord said, "I need more powerful magicians. They are few in our army, and we need them badly in the coming battles." Ares began to think about his father's words, as he had previously tried using magic. Ares replied, "Come on, father. I will bring you powerful magicians." Then he rode his horse with Ritsu, and they set off in search of those with exceptional abilities. After a while, they arrived in the city, which was bustling with people and activity. Ares was astonished by the large population, but Rizzo told him that this was normal, as Cattle Castle had more than 50,000 people. Ares felt a little nervous because of these large crowds, but Ritsu reassured him and said, "This is a good thing. The more people there are, the greater the chances of finding people with exceptional talents." Ares got excited, and he and Ritsu began searching for talented people. As they walked around, Ares noticed the elegant appearance of the people. They seemed wealthy and luxurious, and he understood that work in the city was easy and profitable. Ares pledged to himself to make his people live in prosperity and bliss. Suddenly, Ares stopped in front of a group of people. He felt that they were distinct from others, but Ritsu did not understand the reason for his stop and said, "Let us go, sir, for the road ahead of us is long." But Ares remained standing where he was. Ritsu turned to Ares to find out why he stopped, so he looked at the people who interested him. They were a group of poor and miserable people, begging in one of the corners of the city. Ares was surprised by the presence of such poor people in a city like this where the character of luxury prevails, and the wealth is apparent among its residents. He learned from Resto that the rich do not care about these miserable people, and that some may even despise them. Ares wanted to speak, but Ritsu interrupted him as if he read his thoughts and said, "I know what you have in mind, sir, but we will not be able to save everyone from the clutches of poverty, as there are many oppressed people whom we will not be able to help." Then he added, "I know that you saved me from a life of misery and misery, but you will not be able to save everyone." Ares realized this bitter truth and felt helpless in the face of the size of the problem, especially since his power was still limited, and his country was going through a difficult crisis. But he thought for a moment, then said to Ritsu, "A while ago, we saw the rich people walking in the streets of the city enjoying their lives, and now we see these poor people suffering from hardship. I promise you that I will save all the poor people from this miserable life. I will provide them with a decent living, and I am sure that there are those among them who have latent talents." Ritsu was impressed by Ares's words and felt admiration and respect for him, despite his young age. Ritsu felt that Ares's age did not match his wisdom and nobility of morals, and he was certain that in front of a great person he would become a wise and compassionate leader for the poor. Ares rushed towards a seller who was calling out loudly, "Dinosaur egg for sale! A real dinosaur egg that I brought from the northern continent!" Aries laughed at the seller's words and said to him, "Are you kidding me?" But the seller insisted on his words and claimed that he was an expert on all types of eggs and that this egg was undoubtedly real. Aries believed him and began to search his pocket for the money and said, "Give me 3 eggs quickly." Here, Ritsu pulled out his sword and pointed it at the seller's neck and said to Aris, "Sir, this man is a fraud. He wants to deceive you with corrupt and counterfeit goods." Aries was astonished by Ritsu's decisive action, while the seller was terrified by the fierce warrior standing in front of him. But Aries did not care about the seller's fear, and said to him reproachfully, "You are a liar. Trade with the northern continent has stopped for a year, and even if we assume the truth of your words, these goods are smuggled and illegal." Then he added, "This is not possible. Dinosaurs have been extinct for a long time, and this egg cannot withstand high temperatures. If it were real, it would have hatched a long time ago." Then he pointed to the color of the egg and said, "Its color is different from the color of dinosaur eggs that I have seen in books." Rizzo concluded by saying, "This is not a dinosaur egg, but rather the egg of a giant lizard from the Insal region." The seller was shocked by Ritsu's words and tried to defend himself after Ritsu exposed him, but Ritsu did not give him much time and shouted angrily, "He is lying to you!" He almost attacked him, had it not been for the intervention of Aris, who was shocked by Ritsu's violent behavior and said to him calmingly, "Calm down, Ritsu, there is no need to be angry." Ritsu woke up from his agitation and began to apologize, surprised by his angry reaction. He was waiting for a punishment from Aries, who looked somewhat astonished, but he said, "Never mind, Ritsu. There is no need for punishment. Let us continue on our way." Aris felt afraid of Ritsu, who had turned from a calm and gentle person into a reckless and nervous person. But he decided to postpone thinking about the matter until a later time, and to focus on his mission of finding talented people. Aries and Ritsu continued their journey in search of those with exceptional abilities. What will happen to them? This is what we will find out in the next video. To follow with us the events of this interesting story, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Don't forget to support the video with one like. Hello.